Here's the thing that always amazes me, Jason Allwine, is that somewhere in the second, third, or maybe even fourth round of our rookie drafts, there is a player that nobody is thinking about right now that is really going to be a third round startup pick next year. Like there is hidden upside in a rookie. And then, you could circle back to people that was, I was on Puka. I was on Tank Dell. If you were really on him like that, you would have taken him in the first round, which nobody did. So I want to see if we could kind of figure out who the possibilities might be for that hidden rookie upside.
Oh, trust me, Alan. I've got more than a few for you. This is my favorite topic this year. The first year I was blessed to be able to go to the Senior Bowl, so I'm very excited to talk rookies in general. I think we're going to help the audience find some good ones today.
Is that your parrot, your bird?
It is. He was quiet until we started recording, so I might have to kick him out here.
Yeah, because I can already hear there he is. But for the audio listeners who can't see that gorgeous bird, I could already see them going crazy saying,
"Yeah,
shut that thing up and cook him."
He's normally so well behaved. Sorry about that, Al.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, I'll deal with screaming babies, but yeah, I like. Just so you know, Jason just put. What kind of bird is it, by the way?
He's a cockatiel.
Okay, all right, I love it. All right, they can't talk, right?
He can sing. Yeah, he's more of a singer, a whistler.
Got it. All right.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. But before we identify, 7 or so rookies that we think have that quote league winning upside, my man, let's. How many dynasty leagues are you in right now?
Oh, we upped the number.
As we're
probably
do.
At like 15 now this year. That feels about right.
Oh man, I remember those good old days.
Yeah, I can't. Last year I was like, 10's enough. And now we get to this year, I'm adding a few more. Even added a 32 teamer, Alan.
Yeah. Oh, look, here's somebody that's annoyed at your parrot or your cockatiel as well. All right. Yeah. So draft strategy. You did a couple startups this year, super flex leagues, little tight end premium. What was your draft strategy going in this year? I know it really depends on the pick, but overall strategy, because mine definitely changed in 2024, Jason.
Yeah. I this year I was a bit more, I guess, egregious in overdrafting some players that I really wanted to build my franchise around in Dynasty. I'll say I just did a startup within the last couple of weeks. It was a super flex. I locked down my quarterback the first 2 rounds. Generally, historically, I'd kind of been one to get my elite quarterback and try to find value. But this year I'm attacking. I want those players I know are going to score me those points. I don't really care about the positional needs. I'm getting my studs.
Oh, you're talking about a quarterback. You want those 2 studs.
Yes, but everyone too. But yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is you say, okay, I could just wait on quarterback, but there's nothing worse in a super flex dynasty league than having to go quarterback hunting. Because you hear on a lot of podcasts, a lot of content, just give a second for Baker Mayfield, give a 2 seconds for whoever. Yeah, that guy needs Matt Stafford also, right? I mean, it's very rare that the team that's losing, that's just gone all in for the tank, has Matt Stafford or, I don't even want to say Geno Smith because he's year to year, but someone like Stafford who's older, who has stability year to year. So it's really hard to find. So, yeah, I agree with you that there's a couple different ways to handle dynasty startup strategy this year, and it's attack early, right, and take your top 8 stud, and then Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott in the second round, someone like that, Tua, or there's completely just punt the position. And when I say punt, I mean, you still have to, it never feels good to take Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins in the 5th and 8th round, but you have to do it if you're going to load up on the other positions, Jason.
You do. It's gross, but sometimes you have to do it. Superflex is very finicky when you're building those rosters. And you even think that kind of what drove me this year to make sure I'm getting my quarterbacks a little earlier than I had is last year I was very much like, I'm going to get CJ Stroud late. I'm going to get Jared Goff late. And then every single time, without fail, I was not able to get those quarterbacks late. And then I'm stuck with Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's just gross. You hate it. You hate to see it.
Ugly. Yeah, that's not good at all. So are there any late round quarterbacks you think are worthy of our attention in startups this year?
Yeah, a lot of them, really. I think all of the rookie quarterbacks, surprisingly, are undervalued this year. So we probably could talk about one of them later in the show. But also some of the non-rookies I think that we should be targeting towards the end. Gardner Minshew, I think, will very easily win that Raiders starting job and be a very valuable player for us. And even, Justin Fields could be very, very fun in Superflex leagues for that end of season push. I think he'll be scoring points in the fantasy playoffs, regardless of if he's impressed as a passer or not. He should still be scoring fantasy points when he takes that job from Russ. So
right. So let's go back to we're going to talk about our rookies that have that league winning upside. But interestingly, I like that you've penciled Gardner Minshew in already. Like he's the starter. I mean, my feeling was that, they paid him like that bridge money, Gardner Minshew, to start for the Raiders. But it felt like from all the training camp stuff that it's like literally a 50-50 thing. They don't have any allegiance to Gardner Minshew. Why are you confident? Or I guess, explain why you're confident that Minshew is that guy.
What we saw from Aiden O'Connell last year really, really wasn't that great. Even in the game that the Raiders scored 63 points, he didn't have multiple touchdowns, right? Aiden O'Connell was fine last year. It worked okay for the Raiders, but he certainly isn't a true NFL quarterback, and that is what Gardner Minshew has displayed. He may not have a really good ceiling or anything like that, but he knows how to run an offense. He minimizes turnovers. He keeps the offense moving. I mean, the Colts were almost in the playoffs last year. With him at the helm. So I just think, especially with the old school type of mentality that the Raiders have, that Gardner Minshew is a perfect fit for what they want to do philosophically.
You know what I call Gardner Minshew? He's Andy Dalton from 7 years ago. Like the guy that's constantly going to bridge. He's good enough to support an offense. Like he's not going to let the offense tank, right? Like you shouldn't. If Gardner Minshew, if you have Devontae Adams and even in your redraft or you have him in Dynasty in your win now team, I think you want Gardner Minshew because he's going to force feed that alpha, similar to that he did to Michael Pittman. But let's, we're going to talk about rookies here. So, let's talk about Brock Bowers for a minute here, right? I mean, Brock Bowers, I know it's not like you can't really call him like sneaky upside because everyone expects him to be tight end 2, tight end 1 in Dynasty fantasy football. But I in the summer months, he's actually fallen down to tight end 4 in the consensus rankings in Dynasty. Yeah. And does he have elite upside? I mean, in this offense with the current situation, or is he a little bit more of a flat tire versus our expectations when he was a prospect?
I would say he has no upside as a rookie. I hate to say it. As a rookie, I do not see the upside case at all. Not with Devontae Adams still there. Jacoby Myers gets a ton of targets. Michael Mayer was fine last year. I like Brock Bowers. He has the athleticism, obviously, but at his current price tag, you need him to hit. And what do we say every single year? Tight ends take time to develop. Tight ends don't normally break out as a rookie. I think we got spoiled last year. We got spoiled by Kyle Pitts. It doesn't happen all the time. And Brock Bowers did not get the right landing spot for it. He really, really didn't. I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm sure he'll get those 500, 600 yards, but it's already not that great of an offense, more than likely. And it's already a super crowded room with alphas, literal alphas. Like Devontae Adams is who he has to beat out for targets. And that's just an impossible feat for a rookie.
I like this take right here, Jason, because and then Jacoby Myers, by the way, I call him an alpha beta, right? Like of this wide receiver 2s, he's the man. He's a target demander, right? He's an 8 for 80 any given week waiting to happen. And this could be, the situation. I know, listen, Dalton Kincaid had a nice season for Buffalo, rookie season, but, Dawson Knox was in the way a little bit, right? That Michael Mayer can be a little bit more than in the way. He's a high pedigree second-year player as well. And even if the outcome ends up being something like TJ Hawkinson, how many years did we have to wait for that? Similar that we might have. I think we just got a little spoiled last year because Kincaid and Sam La Porta are now top 3 tight ends and they, from their rookie season, Jason.
Right. And even like Kincaid, like you said, he struggled with Dawson Knox. And Kincaid had no ceiling games even without Dawson Knox. He had no 20-point games last year. Absolutely zero. And only one game with double-digit targets.
Wow.
So that's another. I mean,
the low touchdown total is interesting, right? Like, because we don't like to predict touchdowns, but I guess with Kincaid, you can uptick those touchdowns a little bit because of all the pass catching options that have left, and that but for another day. All right.
For another day.
Yeah. Another player that I wanted to talk about, maybe possible hidden upside. And again, it's not that everybody doesn't know about A.D. Mitchell, right, on the Colts, but I mean, he's not a player you're pumped to take in your rookie draft. You're like, all right, he's the best player on the board at the end of the second round. When you're in when you're in these, super flex rookie drafts.
Right.
Pretty good offense, but is this the player that we could all be like, oh my God, I could have had him anytime in the second round, and now he's, wide receiver 11 in Dynasty startups next year? Does AD Mitchell have that kind of upside?
I don't know about like wide receiver 11, but I think AD Mitchell has a ton of upside, especially when you look at the type of usage that Alec Pierce had last year. And fun fact, I went back and listened to last year's episode with me and you, and we actually talked a little bit about Alec Pierce. But the fun thing is we weren't
by the way, award-winning episode, best episode I did last year.
Such a good episode.
I listen, it's up there. It's Mount Rushmore from last year. Right.
You asked me how many rush yards I think James Cook will get, and I said 1,100. He finished with 1,122.
See, if you would have listened to that episode, everybody, you would have had your James Cook prop would have hit. All right. Anyway, AD Mitchell, I'm really
right.
I know you study these guys like the Torah, these rookies, so I'm really interested in AD Mitchell's upside.
Yeah. So what is AD Mitchell brought in to do? Well, he's brought in to replace Alec Pierce, who has that elite size and speed and athleticism, who has that second round draft capital, who has the deep threat possibility on this offense. What we saw from Alec Pierce last year, 95% snap share, 593 routes run. That is the 7th most in the entire NFL, and had 100% route participation. Consistently on the field, was 9th in average depth of target with 14.9 yards, right? Now, AD Mitchell is going to take all that because Alec Pierce sucked last year. Alec Pierce only brought in 32 of his 65 targets, only had 500 yards, and only had 2 touchdowns off of his 969 air yards. AD Mitchell has a 1,000-yard ceiling this season, and with Anthony Richardson's incredible arm, I would honestly be surprised if we don't see him at least have some spike weeks and be one of those really good wide receivers for underdog rosters.
Why did they choose to replace Pierce a year after getting him? I mean, he was a second-round high pedigree pick. Was he just not the guy, or is this just like, hey, you can never have too much depth? AD Mitchell's a first-round talent that fell to the second round. Who cares that we already have someone at that position?
It's just 2 years now of not being that good, unfortunately. I mean, and it's not like he's been bad, right? 2 seasons of over 500 yards, 2 seasons with a couple touchdowns, but lots of drops, struggling to find any separation. I mean, if you look at it right now, he was 124th in route win rate, according to Player Profiler, only winning 35% of his routes. So it's just, he really, as athletic as he was, as good as he was to Cincinnati, I mean, he was an alpha there. It didn't translate to the NFL. They're ready to move on.
Okay, so when you talk about route win rate, I want to ask you what that means. So how do they measure that? I'm like, what does that mean?
So basically, Player Profiler has a team of game charters, and to win a route, basically you've got to just kind of get open, whether it be a few yards of separation, a corner's falling down or whatever. But it's when you've won your route, whether it be by a catch or just literally gaining some sort of separation.
Okay, and that just shows that, hey, this is going to be it's not just targets; it's like viable targets, right? Like this guy can. Okay, that makes sense to me. And then, how heavy do you use that metric? I guess it's not. It's more descriptive than it is predictive. I guess it could be predictive as well, like because
it's like any metrics, right? You've got to figure out how it tells the story that you want to tell. In this case, we can say, hey, Alec Pierce ran the 7th most routes in the NFL last year, but he only won a third of those routes. Like, he was consistently locked down. So that shows that there's a ton of volume for whoever is this deep threat on the Colts. And all they have to do is win these routes, and they'll probably be viable. And AD Mitchell did that at Texas. It was more of a health thing than anything.
Who's somebody in the second or third round of these rookie drafts that I'm just, I always like to see where you're at, because I have the guys I've been taking, and then you try to vary the portfolio. If you've been taking too much of this guy, I'm in 40 leagues. So is there anybody in like that second, third, or, who's somebody that might actually have like, damn, I didn't take him, elite upside?
Jalen Wright. That is the pick for me in the second round, especially if I'm targeting a running back. Running back on the Miami Dolphins, taken in the 4th round, but Miami paid a 3rd rounder next year to get that pick. So I'm calling him a 3rd round pick. So am I. They wanted him bad, and it's easy to see why. The Miami Dolphins backfield, especially last year, but over the last 2 seasons with Raheem Mostert and just Mike McDaniel being there in general, it has just been incredible. And we're seeing the fantasy community somehow always wrong in this backfield. 2 years ago, we have to get Chase Edmonds and fade Raheem Mostert. Last year, oh my God, we have to draft Jeff Wilson over Raheem Mostert this year, everyone's like, oh, I'll get Raheem Mostert in these middle rounds. Oh, I'll take Devon Achane in the second round. What if we're just wrong again? Because last year, the only thing that people were fading Devon Achane for was the fact that they didn't know that he would be healthy. I was against that. I took a ton of Devon Achane last season, and it worked out for me. But he still had injuries. He had 3 different injuries last year. He had a shoulder sprain. He had a knee sprain. He had toe soreness and bruised ribs towards the end of the season as well, right? And he only had a 40% opportunity share on the Miami Dolphins last year. So it really didn't work out, at least in terms of a volume and staying healthy concern. Raheem Mostert's 32 years old. Yeah, he's over his career struggled to stay healthy. Of course, in Miami he has, but at some point something's going to give. But then even then, Raheem Mostert, despite being so successful last year, only had a 53% opportunity share. So there really is a ton of room for another running back in the backfield, especially when we're hearing reports that Devon Achane is actually working in the slot right now at Miami Dolphins camps. Jaylen Wright is 5'11", so he has the height. Jaylen Wright is 210 pounds.
This is like Alvin Kamara size, basically.
Essentially, yeah. And that's like a really, really good comp for him because he's incredibly explosive at his size and speed. 4.38 40-yard dash, had over 1,000 rush yards in the SEC last year, has receptions as well, went to Tennessee where Alvin Kamara went. I think that the Miami Dolphins clearly want to use a cycle of backfields. Even last year, right? Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and Salvin Ahmed was being used. Yep. So Jaylen Wright is going to get at least like 15% opportunities. And then if any injuries happen, which they probably will, as we saw last year, both Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane were injured at different points. He'll be a massive, massive producer with his athleticism on this offense. Yeah,
listening to you talk about this stuff and having a conversation with you, it really does make me miss that we've only gone one podcast or so in a year, on the RotoWire podcast feed. I really do enjoy, and I really respect your depth of knowledge on this stuff. And it really is, not all content has to be actionable, but I do like, your takes on this do help form my action plan for my upcoming rookie draft. So I know the listeners enjoyed you too. When you were on last year, I mean, the comments from internally and stuff, people were requesting you back. I had to fight them off. So you have fans, Jason Allwine.
I appreciate that. I really love the praise. Seriously.
Yeah.
Can't stop. I'm a better person.
Stop. I love it. Right. Yeah. Stop. Let me hear more. No, I do appreciate what the hard work you put in there. So I just want to stick with the Miami backfield for a second here, Jason, is that you're right. Like the Miami, they have these super backs, right, in the system. Mostert with his 20+ touchdowns, right? And then, Achane when he had 50 points in a fantasy game. I mean, if he's hurt 4 weeks at a clip, you almost don't care. When he's there, you start him. And I think that's what happened with Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. They were like, man, when both of our secret weapons get hurt, we need one more, right? Yeah. We need one more if we're going to make a run at the Bills. If we're going to make a run at the Jets for the division here. I snuck that in, the Jets as a Jet. So it's when you take Jalen Wright in the second round, I've seen him fall to the third round sometimes. It's not that you're thinking you have like an RB2 with upside or something like that. It's like, you know what? I may not get to deploy him till week 9, but when he has a clarified start, man, when I'm 5-3 and I really need a win, I'm 4-4 and I need a win, you're going to feel good rolling him out there. And, if he has 12 carries, 100 yards and a touchdown, man, is that going to pay off? And if you're a cash out guy, Jason, that's when you'll be able to get the first round pick if you want to liquidate.
Yeah, definitely. I think that easily. I mean, and even think about it this way: Raheem Mostert's contract ends at the end of this year too. So this is also a 2025 play for our dynasty managers. You have the RB2 potentially, maybe takes that starting role from Devon Achane, as he does have a little bit more of that, first and second down build, being over 200 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, and who else are you really taking in that section of the draft? I mean, you're looking at a lower upside Roman Wilson type. I mean, you're taking a swing at Jermaine Burton, which is a nice swing, but man, does he have a lot to overcome? And he's a receiver that was drafted with lower pedigree when you compare it to the third round running back is basically a second round running back, right? I mean, you like how we just took him from the 4th round to the 2nd round? You said that Jalen Wright was drafted in the 4th. But it was traded a 3rd round pick, so he's really a 3rd. And now we're saying a 3rd round running back is really like a 2nd round receiver. So yeah. And now we're saying you can cash out for a 1st round. I'm just looking around like the ADP. All right, Marshawn Lloyd on the Green Bay Packers That's a real decision that fantasy managers have to take. What's the story with Marshawn Lloyd? Does he have that league winning upside?
Yes. However, so Marshawn Lloyd's an interesting one. So I actually had the pleasure of going to this year's Senior Bowl, and Marshawn Lloyd was clearing away the best running back there. Honestly, not even close. From day one, he was turning heads on the broadcast from the people that were there. Super, super elusive running back. We saw it at USC. He averaged 17 yards a catch. That's crazy. So he has some explosiveness. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about with him is he doesn't necessarily have full bell cow frame, which is obviously not going to be an issue as a rookie. Josh Jacobs is there, but Josh Jacobs' contract is technically only a 1-year contract, kind of how it's built out. It could turn into 2, but I think more than likely it's probably just going to end up being this 1-year rental. And they're going to look to Marshawn Lloyd to be a lead back, but I don't know if he actually could do that. He's 5'9", 220 pounds, which the weight seems really good, but his lower body is a little smaller from what I remember looking at him, and that does kind of matter how big your calves are.
The lower body's smaller. That's not code for anything, right?
No, he's just got some as Cody Carpenter calls it, just skinny calves or whatever. Right. So
keep your eyes up here, Jason. Eyes up here on these guys. All right, listen, no judgments, no judgment. Anyway, go ahead. No, I'm interested. So, do you think Lloyd has an immediate role? Like, is he just is he pushing AJ Dillon out of the way, or is he have possible game day inactivity on week 1 possibility as well?
I don't think. I think he. It's tough because AJ Dillon obviously has the favor of the coaching staff and can be the guy that just goes in and grinds out some plays. Whereas Marshawn Lloyd's not really that. He is more of a pass catching back. I could see all 3 having game day roles. I think Marshawn Lloyd is definitely a running back you want to own over AJ Dillon, but I could definitely see us getting a little frustrated by AJ Dillon's usage. I think if Josh Jacobs wasn't the running back here, I'd feel so much better about Marshawn Lloyd. But Josh Jacobs doesn't get enough credit as a pass catcher either. Like, he truly is a true 3-down running back. He has multiple games with double-digit receptions, Josh Jacobs does. So it's going to be very hard for him to find the field. I think when he does, though, he'll be very electric. I mean, it's a very, very good Packers offense. He is elusive like we saw in college. He can run. He can catch. So, I mean, I think he'll be really good, but I am taking Jalen Wright over him.
Yeah. Now, sticking with this Packers running back thing for a second, it's going to be very interesting to watch. There's some hard takes out there about Josh Jacobs in the Green Bay running backs. It's like either you think Jacobs could be the bell cow, which he's been before and he's been successful at it, or, you know, there's some guys over at RotoWire that will say, hey, the Green Bay system is a multi-back system. Even, you know, when the Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones days, you know, they were never full-time players. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. I would Josh Jacobs ADP 3rd round in redraft is a little like dicey, right? Maybe even 4th round.
Yeah.
But he's a good player who's done it before, and that's usually the best metric of how they're going to do. Who's somebody else that, like, in the 3rd round that we could be kicking ourselves, or, you know, late 2nd, early 3rd round, maybe even a little bit later in our Dynasty rookie drafts that we're going to be kicking ourselves that we didn't take them because of their elite rookie upside?
Can I go deeper than that?
Deeper as you want, baby.
This is a guy available on probably everyone listening's waiver wire, and he should not be.
Just say the name. Who's the name?
Ryan Flournoy, 6th-round rookie wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys. This is a guy I've been heavily beating the drum for all offseason, starting with my going to the Senior Bowl. This is a guy who stood out immediately to me. In fact, I wrongly took a picture of him when I first arrived, thinking it would be Xavier Legette just based on the frame. And then it was actually Ryan Flournoy. Which is very interesting. That kind of just shows that he has kind of this build that kind of just draws your eyes to him. He's 6'1", 200 pounds, which is, you know, prototypical. It's good enough. But what's really, really exciting about him is his raw athleticism. So if you look at the Math Bomb on Twitter, he does all of these raw athleticism scores or relative athletic scores. And he got a 9.89. which going back to 1987 is the 38th most athletic wide receiver that he's ever charted. He ran a 4.44 40-yard dash. He has a 93rd percentile burst, and at his size, he has the 87th percentile catch radius. And what I like most about him is how hard of a worker he is. It's very difficult to, without a doubt, say that someone's a hard worker if you've never truly met them or anything like that.
And they made it to the NFL, so you know they have some work ethic, right? Or actually, that's not 100% true.
Not 100%.
A lot of time, right? Because in high school they were a better athlete than everybody. In college, it could have been the same thing. He didn't have to, but once you get to the pros, work ethic will show. That's it. So I want to, I made the point and now I'm walking it back.
But the beauty is that was never the case for Ryan Flournoy. He was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school, went D2 during the COVID years, tore his ACL, and actually had to go the JUCO route where he tore his ACL again.
Wow. And same knee? Same knee?
Different, I think.
Wow. So is that two knees? Is this why he was a 6th-round pick?
Probably, maybe. But the beauty is he recovered, led his JUCO team in receiving, was able to transfer to a D1 school at Southeast Missouri State. He got all conference honors, led them in receiving back-to-back seasons. He gets that Senior Bowl invite really, really late. He goes, he stands out at the Senior Bowl, does so well at the Senior Bowl, he gets a late combine invite, then stands out at the combine. Like I mentioned, the crazy, crazy athleticism scores. And what's even cooler, going into last year, going into the college football season, he made 2023's The Athletics College Football Freaks list, not just because of how good he was on the football field, but also because his head coach called him the hardest worker he's ever seen. And just a fun one, a 3.9 GPA. So he is really, really working it out in all facets, recovering from injuries, playing at all 3 levels of college, getting that, going from a 0-star high school recruit to earning the Senior Bowl invite, then getting the late combine invite, standing out there. He even, Alan, you'll like this, Chris Carter is actually mentoring him right now. He's hanging out with him a ton.
Anytime a Hall of Famer is mentoring you, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what I also like is that, okay, you have CD Lamb.
Right.
Brandon Cooks is a rock solid veteran, but that number 3 spot is open. And Jake Ferguson, you could argue, it is the number 3, but there's room for a receiver. And again, it's somebody that if he can ascend to playing, right? Like if he could take the, what was the Michael Gallup role or the Jalen Tolbert role now, and he's that guy. One, if there's an injury, right, and you have him on your taxi squad, that's somebody you can pick up and play. I mean, I'd rather have, just by the way you're describing Flournoy, did I say that right, Flournoy?
Yeah.
I'd rather have him on my roster. I still have Paris Campbell hanging around on some of my rosters. We were talking about roster cloggers. Yeah. At least, we know what Paris Campbell is. Clip. We're not saying drop. I mean, would you drop Odell Beckham if he was sitting on your roster to pick up Flournoy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what
I'm very much in on him. I've been drafting him. I'm not letting, for the most part, the only time I haven't drafted him was we only had a 3-round rookie draft, but I'm taking him in every 4th round. I have 80% exposure to him, even on Underdog. I'm taking him as my 18th round flyer. I'm very, very much in on this player.
So the running backs that go in that area of the draft, like the last few picks of a 4 or 5 round draft, are like Dylan Lobby. Would you take Lobby or would you take Flournoy?
That's very fun. Those are actually kind of the 2 I'm alternating between. If I need a running back, I'm taking Lob because I love.
Is it Lob or Lobby?
I think it's Lob. I think it's
okay. Good. Because when Podfather says Lobby, it annoys me. So I'm glad you told me it's Lob. All right, good.
Lob, and I'll give you a bonus one. It is Ben Sinnott.
Yeah, that one I got because everyone said Sinnott, the tight end on the Washington Commanders, right? So so Sinnott, Lob, not Lobby.
Yeah.
Flournoy.
Yeah.
What are some other common mispronounced names this year? Is there anyone else, or that basically sums up the big ones?
I mean, it's Penix, not Penix, but I know
that. Right. Last year it was A-Chan, remember?
Yeah,
so there's always one.
And it's funny, Devon Achane did, play worse when he changed his name from A-Chain.
I agree. Should have gone with the mispronounced name. Yeah, okay. So Flournoy, that's a good one. That's one we want to keep on our radar screen. And you could pick him anytime. And like if you're in a 4-round draft, rookie draft, you could take him with 412. No one's going to beat you to the punch there. And probably the same thing if it's a 5-round draft. Like you said, he's if you're in a deep league that has 35, maybe he's not out there, but 25 deep or 30 deep, he's certainly going to be on your waiver wire. I've seen him on a couple of mine, so that's a good tip right there.
Yeah.
Give me someone else, man. Someone that's getting drafted here, a rookie that we're going to be kicking ourselves that we took some low upside bet and missed out on a high upside player. So anybody else that you like there?
This one is not necessarily bold, but I'm starting to get confused by it.
These don't have to be bold, by the way. They don't have to be bold. Again, before you tell me who you're saying, I think Blake Corum's going to be one of those guys, right? Everyone's drafting Blake Corum, right? But you're going to say, damn, I passed on him for, Keon Coleman, and Keon Coleman is like, barely playing or not playing well, and Blake Corum for 4 weeks is the RB7 because something like that. It doesn't have to be bold. I just want to talk through the upside scenarios of a lot of these guys.
Yeah. So why are we not taking Rome Odunze?
Yeah, there you go.
I know that, of course, he's still a first-round rookie pick, but, we're talking about a top 10 wide receiver, top 10 drafted wide receiver, a best comparable player to Justin Jefferson on Player Profiler, the first wide receiver prospect of all time to have an all-green reception perception chart from over at the Harmon boys. And, of course, also, incredible college production. Rome Odunze, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns last year as they go on to the national championship. One of the guys that stood out at the combine because of him just staying at the end, trying to nail that 3-cone drill. He's got really, really good athleticism. And I think the only reason we're fading him is because it's a quote-unquote crowded receiver room.
Well, let me ask you this, Jason. Let's talk some practical draft strategy here, okay? We're in a rookie superflex draft. I think we can all agree that Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams should be the 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay. Jaden Daniels in a superflex league, him and Malik Neighbors should be the 3 and the 4. Or no, you could say no.
Should be 3.
Who should be?
Jaden Daniels should be 3.
Okay, so now we're at 4. Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. You're saying, why is it like chalk that everyone's taking Neighbors when, hey, a month into the season, 6 weeks into the season, you're going to be like, man, I should have taken Rome Odunze. That's your point.
Yes.
There it is. Okay, so that is bold, by the way, because I've been in 26 drafts so far. 0 people have taken Rome Odunze over Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, and I don't get it. I really don't get it, because I think if our rookie drafts happened before the draft and we knew these landing spots, right, I still think that we still would have been taking Odunze before Neighbors. But something kind of happened. I don't know what it is. I really don't. But something like a switch went off in people's heads where they just started fading Rome Odunze. But everything is still the same. And my favorite thing is not even a football thing. It's just a friendship thing. Quarterbacks and wide receivers, when they like each other off the field, they love each other on the field. We see it time and time again. Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams being brought in together on the same draft class, I really think is going to mean a ton. They're probably, we heard the stories last year of Josh Downs and Anthony Richardson playing catch in the hotel parking lots. I'm sure they were doing a lot of the same stuff. That you see them doing the like bear claw symbol together, doing the little secret handshakes. They're going to be really good friends off the field. They're going to end up, it's going to lead to targets. And if you want a football reasoning, why not talk about the new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, coming in from Seattle? A lot of people were like, oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba with this offensive coordinator last year.
Let's explain this, because this has come up a couple of times in the RotoWire podcast, and we always get, what are they talking about? So Shane Waldron, who was the offensive I'm just going to explain it. I know you know this. I'm just explaining it. So was the offensive coordinator in Seattle last year. Last year, Seattle takes the number 1 wide receiver off the board in JSN. JSN has to contend with 2 veterans that are good at football, DK Metcalf and, of course, Tyler Lockett. So, and JSN, by all accounts, was the 3rd guy. He really didn't have a great season. So the comparison that you're making smartly, I like this. Waldron now is over with the Bears, and they have a top 10 rookie, right? I know JSN wasn't top 10, but, a highly touted rookie behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Why wouldn't Waldron just make his rookie the 3rd wide receiver? There we are.
Because Rome Odunze is not the receiver JSN is. JSN's a great receiver, but he is more of a slot guy. Rome Odunze plays outside. Rome Odunze can play everywhere. And where does Keenan Allen play? He plays in the slot. What did Keenan Allen get? A 1-year contract. What does Keenan Allen have? Old injury history, right? I think when I'm looking at this and fully expect the Bears to throw Rome Odunze into, maybe pencil him in as a wide receiver 3, on the depth chart. But he's going to be the one out wide alongside DJ Moore with Keenan Allen on the inside. And I think that especially towards the end of the season, it's just going to get better and better and better and better. If an injury happens, then it's going to be even better. But I don't think it matters. I really don't think that this is an injury play here. I really think that the Bears took Rome Odunze to be Caleb Williams' number 1 target for their career. DJ Moore only has 2 more seasons left on his contract. Keenan Allen's only a 1-year deal. I mean, especially
Yeah, DJ Moore to me profiles is like for a real NFL team. I know he's like a 1 and he was the first wide receiver in his draft class, but he seems like he would be like an elite number 2 on his team, right? Whereas
Exactly.
Odunze is like the true alpha. And if you remember back to the year CeeDee Lamb was drafted to the Dallas Cowboys, there was some apprehension to take him ahead of Jerry Jeudy or whoever else was in those guys, because Amari Cooper was in the peak of his powers. Michael Gallup was an ascending guy, and it wasn't that you didn't think CD was going to be the guy, but you're like, hey, he's starting off at the number 3. I think there's a lot of parallels there. Yeah, not with that situation where how the market perception was of CD Lamb versus where we are with Rome Odunze as well.
Yeah, and I think we're going to sorely regret it. I really do.
Okay. I love that one. All right, let's take a short break, Jason. And when we come back, we have a bunch of other rookies to discuss that have that serious upside we might regret not drafting in our Dynasty rookie Superflex drafts. We'll be right back. And we are back with the RotoWire Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. Alan Seslowsky with my buddy Jason Allwine. Is it Allwine or Allwine? Allwine. Yeah, Allwine. Player profiler. You follow him as I do at give me the Twitter handle.
At JFootballWine.
Right, there you go, which I have linked in the video description below. Just a couple of housekeeping notes here. Redraft season's also getting underway, so if you want to go check out RotoWire, we're going to give our 2 days of premium away for free. Just go to rotowire.com/pod, rotowire.com/pod, put in your email, get all the rankings, get everything, take a peek with our new tools. We have a new Pick'em tool. We have a new draft simulator, whole bunch of different things. You can see that for free for 2 days. And we also have a couple sponsors for the podcast. Prize Picks. Everybody knows Prize Picks, best pick'em app out there right now. And our code for the deposit match is RotoPod, ROTOPOD, RotoPod. Deposit up to $100, double the match. And then Fantrax also sponsoring the podcast today. I only have one league on Fantrax, but I have to say, Fantrax, man, they are very underrated as far as like for Dynasty football, even for redraft. I'm going to start adding a couple more redraft leagues and maybe 1 or 2 dynasties on Fantrax, because we have a code right now. Let me see. I probably should know the code, right? I probably should know the code. Here we say. Okay, here it is right here. I'm gonna read you the read. This is terrible. I should have had this off the top of my head right here, right? Fantrax is running a special promotion you don't want to miss. Sign up for free at fantrax.com/RotoWire. Okay, fantrax.com/RotoWire today. Enter your chance to win tickets to any regular season NFL game for you and your entire league. That's pretty good. Plus $6,000 in spending cash. That's right. Tickets for an entire league. Simply create a new league and bring over your existing leagues for more chances to win. Fantrax.com/RotoWire. Oh my God. Okay, this is a new sponsor. I didn't realize it was this much of a so you can go over, sign up Fantrax. They're giving you the incentive, man. You're bad. Although some of my leagues, Jason, I'm not sure I would even want to go to a game with these bastards.
Yeah. Not with the trade offers I'm getting.
Right. We're talking about rookies with upside, man. Who's somebody that we're probably going to regret drafting, similar to passing on Puka and Tank Dell last year?
Yeah. Can I go with some teammates, bundle them together?
I mean, would I ever tell you no?
No.
Who's it going to be?
It's new Denver Broncos, Troy Franklin and Bo Nix. I think that both of their values are very interesting right now. And I mean, they were teammates last year and they're teammates again. And like I talk about with Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams, their friendship off the field probably leading to targets. I'm assuming that Troy Franklin and Bo Nix, given that they already have a repertoire together, is going to lead to a ton of targets in the NFL as well.
And Jason, when have we ever seen a quarterback that's drafted in the top half of the first round go this late? I mean, Kenny Pickett, his year was, 20. This is pick 12, and he's going sometimes the 202 in super flex leagues.
I really don't get it. I do not get it. I have been taking a stance on him and Michael Penix. Similar to you, I'm taking my quarterbacks in Superflex rookie drafts that were drafted in the top 10.
Yeah, I'm not taking Xavier Worthy over these guys. Even if Xavier Worthy's, let's say Xavier Worthy has a good season, the rookie drafted by the Chiefs. And I'm sorry I interrupted your flow here, but I think this is you brought up like two of the perfect guys, but specifically Nick's is like, what is a great season for Worthy? 750 yards and 6 touchdowns on 56 catches, right? Or, I mean, maybe there's more upside there, but Bo Nix, if he has like an okay year and he's quarterback 22, is still probably more valuable in Superflex leagues.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing that I think we're fading him for is because the Broncos are going to be bad. Well, what do we know about bad offenses for fantasy? Score points in garbage time, and fantasy points are fantasy points. Right. And I expect Troy Franklin to be on the field a decent bit, catching some passes from his guy. And I also think that that'll make, Bo Nix's transition to the NFL a little bit easier, just having a guy that you're familiar with. And Sean Payton's already talking about using a lot of the plays that they did in Oregon. It's a very, very similar offense that Sean Payton likes to run to what Bo Nix ran in Oregon. And guess what? He had 4,500 passing yards last year. 45 touchdowns.
Like what?
3 interceptions.
He's careful with the ball.
Yes. Yeah, and so I mean, like, I think even if he's I really don't expect Bo Nix to bust. I mean, I really think that Russell Wilson is just totally washed. And I think that Bo Nix is a perfect fit for this offense. And I think worst case scenario, we're talking about Derek Carr. Right. And that happens to be Bo Nix's best comparable player on Player Profiler. So I want both of them. And I brought Troy Franklin in here just because they have the connection together. He's super cheap. You can make that stack very easily. And I do expect, especially if Cortland Sutton leaves, Troy Franklin to kind of take that wide receiver 1 role over Marvin Mims. 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns last year as a college receiver, only 21 years old, 4.4, 140-yard dash, 6'2", That's a good wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Franklin was basically, he was one of the polarizing guys before the NFL draft, goes in the 4th round, the early part of 4th round, but then he was basically flat tire dead, then lands on Denver with his college quarterback, right? And then there's some life left in him there. And I think that ends up being the perfect guy if you want to do the eerie comparisons to Tank Dell and to Puka Nacua. Not that he's the same type of player, but drafted late, and not that those other guys were expected to. Like Franklin was more of a guy that was expected to go. I mean, he had 1st-round buzz at one point.
He did.
Maybe more of a 2nd-round guy, but that seems like the guy who, I mean, he's getting pushed up into the late 2nd, early 3rd. You don't see him go much past there. But I love the highlighted Bo Nix because he is the most fascinating. Like, there was a league I was in, Jason, where I had the 101, right? It was my team that I have a bad team. And I'm quarterback needy. Yeah. So I took Marvin Harrison with the 101, not Caleb Williams, knowing at the 201, Nix or Penix, right? Yeah. It is from a draft strategy perspective. And again, not that Bo Nix doesn't have way more risk than Caleb Williams, but I can get the next Jamar Chase, the next AJ Green, depending on what era of football you're thinking about, potentially with Marvin Harrison, and still get Derek Carr. Is that if Bo Nix ends up being Derek Carr, isn't that a good fantasy football career?
Yes, it's a perfect fantasy football career, and he's so cheap.
Yeah, totally. All right, Jalen McMillan, wide receiver on the Tampa Bay Bucks. What could you tell us about him? Because he seems to be someone that has some fans, yet he stays. He is basically in that 3rd round. He, sometimes the late 3rd round here. I guess let me start with this. Do you like McMillan's upside as being a player that we're excited about and taking next year? Not saying that he doesn't have upside with Tampa this year, but but just based on your body language, it doesn't seem like he's one of your guys. I like the idea of McMillan.
Yeah, I like the idea of McMillan, but I think just when you break down the Buccaneers, it just doesn't, it never lines up for me, really. Say, okay, Chris Godwin, who's only 28 years old, by the way, isn't on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year for some reason. Mike Evans is gone also. Then maybe he's starting. Well, but then even then, you're talking about Baker Mayfield, and then you're talking about, Baker Mayfield's contract's about to expire. Oh, what's going on with this Buccaneers team again? It's imploding. So and especially with Trey Palmer there, who broke out, kind of late in the season and has a little bit more of a fit in the offense as a field stretcher, whereas Jalen McMillan is kind of just a Chris Godwin replacement. When I look at his profile, I don't hate it, but I don't like it at the same time. Like, I think that this is just one of those types of assets that, you kind of have on your team. you never end up starting him, and you're kind of just always hoping, and he's always like this close,
Yeah.
But it's
Well, here's the narrative on McMillan that I thought was interesting, right? Is that he was a player that was injured, right, at Washington, right, and that he was the guy before Polk became the guy, and Polk only became the primary target at University of Washington after McMillan was hurt. But during McMillan's healthy time, that he was productive, and this is why he fell to the 28th pick of the third round. So, I mean, it's only going to cost you a third, but somebody in the third round of these drafts, Jason, is going to end up being like oh man. And, by all accounts, I mean, first of all, Mike Evans isn't going anywhere. He just signed a new deal. He's there for at least 2 more years. Godwin, like you said, still a good player. So the best, I guess, we could hope from McMillan is that he beats out Trey Palmer, right, for the third spot. And then in an injury week, or has like an 8 for 80, and then maybe you cash out. But man, I'm just trying to figure out, though, because there is going to be a player that in week 1 goes nuts, and that we're all in fantasy social media going to fight over. Should we cash out for a second? Mm-hmm. That he's going to do it again. Should I cash out for a third? So who's that? Who's another player, man, that if it's not McMillan, let's try to figure out who it could be in those rounds.
Let's go to an offense that's exciting, that needs a deep threat, and just drafted a deep threat in the 4th round. The Baltimore Ravens' new rookie receiver, Tez Walker.
I like this one.
Think this is a very fun one. Now, probably boom or bust, but I think the booms are going to be pretty nice when you talk about this. I mean, last year, Nelson Aguilar had 4 games with 10 or more points and multiple touchdown weeks. We saw Marquise Brown in a similar role on this offense have a 1,000-yard, top 15 season. Now, that was when Marquise Brown was, the wide receiver 1, so I'm not necessarily expecting that. But I mean, this is a guy who's like wide receiver 70-something in Dynasty and even lower in redraft.
You can get him anytime in the 4th round, more or less.
Anytime. But, 6'2", 190 pounds, prototypical size, 4.36 40-yard dash, had a 900-yard season at North Carolina, would have had the same last year if he didn't get injured, was the deep threat there. Great connection with Drake May. So I think that this is a role on the Baltimore Ravens that we've seen success for. Again, Nelson Aguilar, Hollywood Brown. He was pretty productive in college as a deep threat, drafted to be the deep threat. The deep threat spot is wide open. And I think that he'll have some spike weeks and be a guy that people wish they took a chance on.
Yeah. So this is the typical, okay, this is the guy right here. I'm convinced already, just because 4th round, he was drafted with the 13th pick of the 4th round in the real NFL draft. He's going in the 4th, sometimes even 5th round of our rookie drafts. There's people that like him, similar to you heard those buzz about some of those receivers last year, but there is room for him in this offense, right? I mean, there is real room for him. Mark Andrews is in Baltimore, back healthy. I mean, you're talking up Rashad Bateman not you, the proverbial. You're talking up Rashad Bateman, hasn't done it yet. They're giving him another shot here. Man, it's
how many times are we gonna do that?
yeah. So there's room for a second threat right here. And as Lamar starts to age more and more, you have to think. I mean, all of these guys start passing the ball more, right? I mean, it happens every single year. All right, as we're winding down right here, this is the one, though. This is the one that I'm when it happens, I'll clip this for you. I'll send it out. We'll do our victory lap. Nobody will care. I mean, that's just basically what happened. But this is the one. All right, give me one more player that could end up being the guy that we're all kicking ourselves that we didn't draft, and then we'll talk a little before we wrap up, Jason, okay?
Yeah, Kimani Vidal from Los Angeles. True bell cow potential here. Gus Edwards is fine. J.K. Dobbins is injury prone, unfortunately. Kimani Vidal comes in and is going to be the future or the next Maurice Jones-Drew.
Whoa. Strong words.
Right, my favorite running back of all time, the pinball himself. Kimani Vidal, same exact frame, 5'8", 213 pounds, 32.4 BMI, which puts him in the 91st percentile for size, which is just impressive. And when I saw him at the Senior Bowl, we talk about lower body and looking below a man's belt. This guy's thighs. I'm talking like.
Yep. By the way, just before we continue with Kimani Vidal, I just wanted, people were yelling at me that I didn't mention Zay Flowers. We're talking about the Ravens passing game. I think we've conceded Zay Flowers is the number one. That's why when we were talking about Tez Walker, because it's so funny. Like, I promise not to get distracted by the comments so I can talk to my guests. But how come you don't mention Zay Flowers? We're talking about Tez Walker and his potential for a role in the offense. We already know. Okay. Anyway, so Kimani Vidal, and also, by the way, depth chart is J.K. Dobbins and Gus, like you said. That's a climbable depth chart. We know this team wants to run, but you saw Vidal. You were impressed by him physically.
Yes, physically, he has a great frame and literally led all rookies and the entire college football last year in rush yards. Had 1,600 rush yards last year, 15 touchdowns. And also some 200 receiving yards, so he can do it both. He has a 4.46 40-yard dash at his size, and he gets that best comparable player of Isaiah Pacheco, which is someone who was also drafted late with size and speed on a really good AFC West offense. So I think that, you combine the Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh scheme, you get the good landing spot. And I actually see a comment here. Somebody talks about the how'd they word this? It was something about just the bloodlines, legacy players.
Why is Vidal a legacy player?
He is Hank Aaron's nephew.
Okay, all right.
Hank Aaron. Hey, the blood runs pure. I think that this guy's going to be awesome. I'm very, very much in on this player, especially towards the end of the season.
Yeah, Vidal was going in the third round of our rookie dynasty drafts. Now he's routinely pinballing back and forth between late second. Would you take him over Jalen Wright?
That has been the toughest decision. So I'm right now Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, and then I'm deciding between Jalen Wright. I actually have Blake Corum behind both of these guys personally.
Okay. So you wouldn't take Corum, even though the third round draft capital, perfect. I mean, if he gets a clarified start, he's a top 10 running back in redraft, right? In a single week. So, but you still, the other guys ahead of him.
I see more upside for Vidal or Wright, really, to be completely honest.
It's all right.
I think I'll take Wright over Vidal. I think right now,
but it's close. The same tier, right? Yeah.
I probably should take Vidal.
Yeah. No, these are all great. These are all great picks. Let us know in the comments also if you watched the video this far, some of your upside rookies, players that we're probably going to regret not drafting, or even if you have like 15 leagues, 10 leagues, 8 leagues, 40-something leagues like myself, that you have a little bit of everybody, but there's times where you're going to be like, oh my God. Like, I look back at my drafts from last year, Jason, and I'm like, how many times did I pass on Puka Nacua for some scrub that I'm pretty much for like a Cedric Tillman or whoever, like, damn, or whatever, Yeah. Is Tillman was Tillman drafted? I'm trying to think. Was Tillman drafted last year? Is he going into his second year? Yeah. So that happened. I was taking Cedric Tillman over Puka Nacua.
Well, hey, he was high school teammates with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was flashing at camp.
That's gonna happen again, man. I'm telling you. One of these guys that we mentioned today. I'm just looking down the list too. Of these players. How about Luke? I mean, lightning round. Luke McCaffrey. I had Thor Nystrom on this podcast, and he was like, oh my, he was very high on Luke McCaffrey. Does he have a chance to be that guy?
Yes, he does. One thing that we're hearing right now is that actually him and Jaden Daniels are like really building rapport together. Him and Luke McCaffrey during rookie OTAs and voluntary minicamps actually showed up at 5 a.m. every single day, hours before practice started, to study film, get some extra reps together. The beautiful thing about Luke McCaffrey is he's a former quarterback, so he knows what quarterbacks are looking for in their routes. He's going to be able to find those soft spots and zones. He's going to be able to get himself open. He's going to know the timing of his quarterback. And so he is an unpolished wide receiver. He's new to the position, but he has all the tools. He has the work ethic. He has the McCaffrey bloodline, and he's already building a really strong connection with his rookie quarterback. And it's a air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury there. So, I mean, I think he'll definitely earn himself a pretty decent role. I still think he's more of a taxi squad candidate, but it's a taxi squad candidate I very, very much want.
Yeah, I mean, Puka Nacua and Tank Dell were taxi squad candidates, right? Again, the reason I'm using them is because even if you liked those two guys, Puka and Tank last year, nobody took them in the first round. Nobody took them in the second. You were like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I got them in the third and fourth round of my rookie draft. So all of these guys. I mean, we talked a little Rome, we talked Brock Bowers, and some interesting things at the top of our drafts. But Luke McCaffrey, yeah, I mean, when Thor came on, he mentioned similar to what you just pointed out here too about the college quarterback thing. I like that you said that he'll know what a quarterback wants, and also the piece that he pointed out that I want to underline for anyone who missed that podcast was that the style of, he called them lollipop balls, like these loopers that Jaden Daniels throw. That is a great spot for Luke McCaffrey, who can run under a ball and obviously and catch it there. It pairs up nicely. So Luke McCaffrey. And again, let's just do lightning round here. There was some early, like spring buzz on Malik Washington. That's quiet a little bit. The wide receiver on Miami. Any interest in him?
Yeah, I would be expecting him to beat out Odell Beckham at some point during the year. This is the guy, I believe he led college football in receptions last year. A very prolific catcher of the ball. So,
all right, a couple more lightning round guys. Brendan Rice. Remember, I defended you at Brendan, right? When you fought with Matty Kiwoom on the player profile, the draft coverage. I thought your fight with Matty about if Brendan Rice is draftable in rookie drafts was probably the most compelling part of that stream. And that was a very compelling stream. It was 3 days worth. That part, day 3, I thought was the best argument, because you both were passionate about saying whether Brendan Rice, 7th round pick, Jerry Rice's son, would even be draftable. And of course he is. It's the perfect situation. Like, who the hell else are you going to take in that area? So let's close with Brendan Rice, since you're such a fan.
Yeah, I've wavered on it a little bit. I am still taking him.
Well, then just talk about the upside. You don't have to pay anything. You have to pay a 4th round.
Definitely. Think about who he has to beat out. DJ Chark, Josh Palmer, Ladd McConkey's in the slot. Like, he very much has a very clear pathway to being the main wide receiver outside threat. So it's worth it at his cost right now. I know that we all expect him to get drafted much earlier, but that is almost a reason to want to draft him. He got lower draft capital than all of us who did all this work expected. We all, before the draft, thought he was a really polished wide receiver who deserved, day 2 draft capital. I even, after the Senior Bowl, had him as the 2nd best wide receiver at the Senior Bowl, right behind Roman Wilson and ahead of Ladd McConkey, his new teammate. He really did look good. I'm not sure what caused the draft stock fall. Nothing's come out for it at all. So I still think there is some potential. I guess my only pause now is just this Chargers offense just kind of looks strange. And I think it might not be a rookie breakout for Brendan Rice. I think it might be a year 2 thing. I think that DJ Chark signing is kind of what soured me a little bit. Not that DJ Chark's great, but he's just like the perfect receiver to hold back a Brendan Rice.
He's a guy, he's a bot, but that's exactly who you want in your way, right? Someone who, right. So yeah, he could hold him down, but that's not going to hold him back, right? That could slow stardom. That could put him on. Exactly. Brendan Rice is if you do believe in Rice's upside, when you're doing a trade, if the other manager has Rice and the trade is being held up, that's the perfect, when we talk about a throw-in, the other manager's not going to stop like a deal happening if you say, hey, just throw in Rice as well. And again, if you have some spots on your taxi squad, it's cheap advice to say because everyone's great on your taxi squad. But I mean, Caleb Williams at USC was #1 overall player, and this is the only receiver that gets drafted from UFC in this was 7th round. It's crazy to me. So yeah. All right, Jason, you did it again. Remind everyone of your Twitter handle or your social media platform formerly known as Twitter handle.
Yeah, we'll still call it Twitter here, as you saw at a bird at the beginning of the show. So I hate the bird erasure that Elon Musk has been forcing onto us. Yeah. But you can follow me there at JFootballWine. In fact, I have secured that handle on all social media platforms, although I am definitely most active on Twitter right now. And you can tune into Wake and Take.
Yeah, Wake and Take is your daily show that you do in the morning on the Player Profiler Network, Appointment TV. Basically, if you miss any news of the day or if you want some analysis on it, Jason does a well thought out instant reaction what do you do, 5 days a week, or you doing it morning?
Friday.
Yeah, so that is must see TV if you just want to just like have it on in the background, get up to speed. You're interactive with the crowd. So Wake and Take, I should have mentioned that at the beginning. That's your signature piece as well. Oh, it's all right. Is that your favorite thing that you do right now, or is there any other? What's your favorite content production thing that you're doing?
It's that. So I am the director of social media for Player Profiler, so I kind of put together a lot of their stuff. But there's nothing like doing your own show, starting your day, drinking some coffee, talking fantasy football, engaging with the audience. It really is just it's awesome. I really do love it, and the chat's great.
I admire your consistency with that show. That is the hardest thing, and I think that says a lot about, obviously the analysis is great or nobody would care, but showing up every day to do that, man, that's not easy. So your hard work does not go unnoticed. All right, everybody. Again, if you want to get behind RotoWire's paywall, rotowire.com/pod, put in your email, paywall unlocks for 2 days. Also, if you love Pick'em games, RotoWire's new Pick'em tool app is fantastic. You can download the app. There's a link in the description below. Other than that, we will be back next week with another Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast.